Okay, so we are about to draw a winner of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera. This is a fun episode. We should have some smoke as well. I got the smoke machine going, or the haze machine. I don't know if you'll see anything, but it's a party, so why not? Anyway, this is how we're gonna do it. I have 24 names. We're gonna give one of these away, and a grading course, and a documentary course, and a LUT and preset pack. So there's gonna be 4 winners, and I have 24 names. I'm gonna put them one by one on one of these, and we're gonna fill out the whole wheel during the live stream, and then we're gonna draw the winner. I don't know, let's just draw the other winners, and this is the last winner we draw, I guess. So the LUT presets and the documentary course and the grading course first. And as I put these up, the names, I'll just answer whatever thing you were struggling with at the same time. So we'll go like one by one, and I'll answer those questions. And maybe I have some time to answer some other questions as well, but otherwise, this is going to be a fun live stream. So I see that a lot of people is super psyched for this. This is fun because it's so much more interactive, and it's like a live show. Let's just start. The first one is what? Let's see. I have them in like order, so I'll just randomize these manually, I guess. First one, Darren. No last name. Darren B. And then, yeah, from South Africa, I think. So I have the emails. So if Darren is here, let me know. Otherwise, the question will probably give you an answer to if this is you. So, congratulations, man. I love your work. I reached the limit that I can achieve with my gear. That's what I've been struggling with. I have been saving up for this cam now and hoping to have enough by the end of the year. Keep up the awesome work. Okay, so about reaching the limit of your gear is basically the wonder or the struggle. So let's see, let's put Darren up first. Darren. Hopefully we don't have more than one, so that's gonna kind of mess this up a little bit. I'll just put Darren on number 1. Hopefully these don't fall off as I spin it. Let me just try. I think we're fine. Okay, so I mean, in terms of gear, like of course you can shoot something on an iPhone, and if you shoot something on an iPhone, you're going to be able to win prizes, you're going to be able to get into a Sundance and something like that, if it's unique enough for your film to do that. So it's not really about the gear, it's more about the idea, I would say. So if gear is limiting you, even if you would win this one, that would be great, right? But even if you feel like gear is limiting you, just that mindset is a problem, I think. Because the first thing that you should be focused on is just creating until you get to like a stage where you have the money and all that. Like as long as you don't feel like the gear is holding you back, then I think that like the mindset is right. But if you feel like gear is holding you back, so if you don't have another phone than an iPhone, then that's what you should shoot it on. If you have a phone like this or a camera like this, then that's what you should shoot it on. But otherwise, like there's always a way. You can always borrow things and go about it in like the more collaborative way. So I wouldn't think about it in that way, because if you feel like, okay, I can't afford this camera, therefore I cannot make this film, that's just procrastinating, and it's just not acting on things. Somebody else will be acting on things and be doing things all the time, and they will also progress because of that, way ahead of you. So I would just try to stay away from that mindset, even if it's fun to win a camera like this. Just use the camera you have, get to the like professional level using that one. Like I shot my film on the Canon 5D Mark II. That's not a good camera with today's standards. Like it's much worse than this one. It's much worse than most cameras you have today. So if you think about it in that way, that like looked amazing in the cinema, and that's what it's about. Like you want it to look amazing on that big screen, and if that holds up, then like this one holds up as well. So practice some more. Okay, Darren was the first one. Let's see. Next one. I'll just do this totally randomly. I have 24 selected randomly, and then now I'll just go one by one. Okay, so Ryan Sherat. Hopefully that's the right one. Finding my own style. Coming from the commercial world has been my excuse for that. I'm only now really taking it up on myself to explore more and experiment more with what it is like, what it is I want. Yeah, I think for me, that was, let me just write, Ryan, okay, put Ryan on number 2 then. So I was a DOP in advertising for a good like 5-10 years, no, probably almost 10 years before I wanted to direct commercials, because I felt like it was very hard to be doing your own IDs at the level that I was at. So when you're starting out and you're a director, you can be like this super talented, super like know exactly what you know in or what you want in terms of style and aesthetics and all that. Like you have a vision for your directing. I didn't have that at all. I just had like a will to want to create films that was like okay, I looked up to certain directors. I want to create something that's not so far from that. And that's how I think that you usually start out. And then like after a while, you start to kind of like evolve as a filmmaker. You start to get maybe even different references of what you think is good. But I think the interesting thing about like when you go out and work with advertising, whatever vision you have, it gets pretty crushed. And a lot of people will get like turned off by that. They don't want to make things. They like just start making things that they get paid for, which is easy in the advertising world. And I've been that way, and that's why I've kind of just been an editor and a DOP for a long time before I started directing and before I found the way that I wanted to make films and was comfortable making them. And then on the side I was making my own projects, and I think that's like a good way to separate yourself, because the thing that happened to me, at least in advertising, is that once you start to get your foot in the door at some place, like if that's a big agency, whatever the first point of contact is, like who you are, the style you are, the level you're at in terms of salary, budgets, and all those things, that's where you're gonna stay. So you can't get any better or higher in that hierarchy. The way that you do that is go to somebody else, work with a different advertising agency or something. You could like slowly progress within that, get a little bit bigger chance, but it's very slow to progress that way. And it's the way that the advertising industry works. Most of the time people will like switch jobs every other year, and that's how they go from like being a low level type of creator to then becoming a creative director at some place, because they always switch and then they switch up. That's how it works for directors as well. If you want to go level up and do your style, what you really love to do, you need to go out and find different projects that aren't the ones that you're making now, that isn't the stuff that you want to do, and you need to go make your passion projects. And you really need to focus on especially the passion projects. You only need one passion project to get your career going in the right direction in terms of like what you want to do, because I get typecasted for what I do. So documentaries that look the way that I make documentaries. And there's not a lot of people that do that in Sweden. Like documentaries for advertising is pretty rare, especially on the level that I'm at. So if you think about it, just going out and picking a niche which is not too crowded, because if you go out and you pick the niche of making like the big TVC commercials, you're gonna have a hard time because it's such a big competitive space to be in. But if you pick a smaller niche, then it's not so hard to stick out and then to start your career off with just one awesome project, which should be like a passion project. That's usually how I would like go about it. But like passion projects, mixing that with working with clients that aren't the ones that you're working with right now, that will give you the freedom to make the stuff in the direction that you want to go. That's how we rerouted. Like we did high-end commercials, but they were pretty boring, and they were like just the same type of info commercial type of stuff. And I just like fell out of love with that. I don't know if I ever loved it, but now we're making like proper documentaries. And that was something that we had to go like all the way around working with somebody else and then going back to them eventually when you maybe win a prize or award for your work. Then they will see you in a different limelight. That's how I would kind of progress in that space. All right, so next one. We got 2 so far. I need to keep track of time because this can be a long live stream if I answer it this slowly. Okay, so Nathaniel Byrons is the third one. I struggle with finding the grading that fits my vision. Okay, so let me write. No. Okay. Third is Nathaniel Byrons. So, grading. Color grading is pretty difficult, I think, when you start out. I think that one trick is to look at films that you really like, make screenshots of them, and then in Resolve you can just put them in as stills, so as reference stills, and then you start to grade towards them and try to mimic the way that they look. In terms of you have the contrast ratio, you have the color in the shadows, the midtones, the highlights. If you start to look at the grade in that way, then I think it's easier to work from something else. So as long as you have references to kind of work towards, it's much easier. And the way that it works is you have the stills, and then when you have to get, or you have to put them on a timeline, I think, and then you have to grab a still to a still library, and then you can play the still while you grade, which will make it easier for you to kind of grade, because you can get a split screen and you can go and yeah, have the color wheels, but you can have the mouse or whatever you have. And that's a good way to try that out, I think. Okay, so number 4, Amber Doku. Anxiety. I struggle with anxiety over everything. Okay, and that is a tough spot to be in. Okay, Amber. I think that when you start out, or wherever you are in your career, like a big thing is to really like get over the hurdle of doubting yourself. That's a big thing. As soon as you try to kind of take that leap, when you actually stop caring about what other people say, think, or whatever they do, when you start to kind of look at nothing happened, right? No, it's just a light. Okay. Still should be good, right? Can't really see. We gotta get some smoke to get some more light here for this question. Smoke is coming. Okay. Anyway, side note. Yeah, so the anxiety part of it, like everybody struggles with it. I think that the more experience you get, the less you will have anxiety. The more you just do, like you just need to push through and just do until you stop thinking about it. That's how I've always gone about it, at least. Like as soon as you start to get rejection, you start to doubt yourself. But the easiest thing is, of course, to just like stop doing things. But that's like one thing of doing it. Just like start to go in and start to doubt yourself. But the best way that I've handled like all rejection and all that stuff is just to not care. And that's easier to say than do, but it's just a matter of just keep on going, keep doing, making things, and you forget about it. But it's not that easy if you aren't doing anything, because the more you sit and you wonder and you think, the more you start to doubt yourself. So you really need to just go out and make more and always be like productive. Like it's more important to just have a schedule and keep to it and always be creating to feel like you're progressing, because if you progress, you stop kind of doubting yourself most of the time. Yeah, but in order for me to give some other advice, I would need a little bit more specific type of anxiety. Anyway, number 4 was Amber, and now number 5. Andrea Paddy. Let's see. As everybody is making this very advanced edited videos using After Effects, Photoshop, Illustrator, etc., I find myself sometimes struggling finding new ways on how to make a video entertaining and keep viewers' attention. I know that story is king, but that's easier said than done. Yeah, I think... Okay, so Andrea Paddy first. So, any common viewer of this channel will know that I hate those transitions and all that. I don't think that that makes for keeping people's attention at all. I think that that's just a fad that will go away. I think that people will look at that as being cliche. They already do, like I do. I think that a story is much more important, and if I would give any advice, I would probably like look at how TV shows are made, like good TV shows, whatever they are that you like in terms of style. Like it could be reality, it could be action, it could be documentary, whatever it is. Like look at those and how they are edited and how they tell a story and how they keep people entertained. Like one way that we go about it in how we edit, now we've made a lot of tutorials at the beginning of this year, but now we're starting to like work out more narrative stuff. But I would say like the more you can switch from location, from what the subject is, but still keeping it cohesive in some way, the more you can kind of switch and surprise, then less you will need people being engaged by having transition and having it be oh so cool, because they will be interested in what's happening. And it's the same for like a live stream. If we would have like random people come in and there would be like this fluidity to the live stream, it would keep people's interest much more. So it's just about surprising people but still keeping like a thread. And the more you have of this journey that I often talk about when it comes to like storytelling, you need to focus on like what is the journey and what's the obstacle, and try to create conflict all along that like timeline that the film is. So the ideal way that you build up a scene, for instance, that's around a conflict. And you would build a scene from like being in one part in the beginning. Okay, so this is a positive part of this character's life, but then during the scene it has to be turned somehow, and that's called like a story event. Something needs to happen that turns that character's world around somehow. And this should ideally be in every scene. And this goes for YouTube videos as well. Like, conflict needs to drive interest, not transitions and that kind of corny ass stuff, my opinion. Yep. Let's see if we have some questions here in the chat as well. No, you're talking to each other. That's great. So I can just keep on selecting this winner. So if you're new, just dropping in here, the way we're doing this is we're putting 24 names up on this. One will win a Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera, one will win a grading course, one will win a documentary course, and one will win a LUT and presets pack. And we're on number 5 now, so let's go to number 6, and then we'll spin this and we'll go from the lower prices to the winner, main winner. Okay, where are we? Okay, so Kyle Anderson. I struggle with finding the locations to capture the essence of the documentary I want to capture. And when I do, often it's ruined by bad weather that distorts the creative mood I'm going for. This is a great question, Kyle. Or struggle that I made into a question. And okay, so you know, when you're starting to work with visual storytelling, it can be kind of hard to kind of envision how to cinematically tell a story with the visual language or whatever, like cinematic language, like it could be audio, it could be whatever it is, action. When you're starting to write a story and you try to do it without like explaining things in audio, like somebody talking, dialogue, and you start to think about how can I tell this story with, for instance, okay, the location I picked, the action I picked, the scene I picked, how I put these two people together, all those things are actually tools to tell a story. So it's not at all about like, okay, I picked this location because it was really nice. No, it's much more about like, okay, so this location, I often bring out like Pearl of Africa as an example when they go up on the hill in Uganda. This is before they have to leave Uganda. So it's this moment where they haven't been up on this hill. I'm the one directing them to go up on this hill together. And they don't like going out that much. But going up on that hill, seeing the sunset, like that was my idea of capturing their intimacy and their love. Because at home it becomes like this, you know, pretty day-to-day, not so special type of thing, where you sit on a couch and you look at a computer or a television, whatever it is. It's not special. Like, it's not a moment that kind of captures their love. So there needs to be something that actually emphasizes that. And for me, going up on the hill in the sunset, I felt like that could bring out those emotions when they were up on the hill together, and it's this special moment for them overlooking their place where they stay for the first time. That's how I think about scenes when I pick like locations for scenes. How can it strengthen the narrative and how can it tell the story? By it becoming, you know, the story itself. Like visually, this tells the story. In Kino, it's similar. Like you have to think about the conflict. What is the conflict? How do I actually embody that in, like, okay, what locations, what scenes? How do we tell that story? You probably hear me anyways. I can speak while we get some smoke. Yeah, so when you pick places, you start with thinking about the conflict. So what is it in Kino? It's the mining conflict and also the community conflict. Like, people don't get along because of the mining situation, because of people's different opinions on how this should be solved. so you need to bring about those scenes, and the reason we picked Kino, this is a story that could be anywhere, but the reason we picked Kino was because it was so obvious visually in that location that this is the issue that we're talking about. We're talking about mining, we're talking about contamination, we're talking about this community in this weird place that is at the end of the road in Canada, and it's all wilderness. It's also an old First Nations area that they took over, and then now they have to kind of work together. And now it's ironic how the people that are like the Kino people, Kino City people, they are pretty much like the First Nations people that had to move themselves because of the mining, and now it's the same for the Kino people. So it has these layers in terms of the location, and that's how you should really think about locations. And then in terms of the weather, like, you can always try to get the best weather, but I always try to kind of go with the flow as well, and I don't look at it as a negative thing if it starts to rain. This has happened like many times, and it's interesting when like, for instance, we were in Uganda and it started raining. It brought about this magical scene where they're just standing and having to take cover with their mopeds underneath like a little roof, and they're standing there, and it makes for the best break in terms of a scene where thunder roars and all that. And I think that you always need to kind of capture what's happening and the realness, which is the weather as well. But you can't think that like it has to be a certain type of weather. Even if you're going for a certain mood, sticking to it too much, it can easily become really cliche as well. So I wouldn't like only think of one mood. If you can, try to really mix it up and try to go with the light. But one way that you can really work with the light is, of course, be like a Swede and look at the weather reports pretty much several times a day, and that's because we're used to working like that in our daily lives, because we always have rain and all that crap. If you're in Jordan like you are, then it's gonna be a little bit less checking of weather because it's pretty predictable. So it kind of depends. Or South Jordan, United States. Okay, then it's not the same as Jordan, the country, or Jordania. Jordan, yeah, Jordan, right? Swedish, English, but still, United States. It's warmer. It's more predictable, but I just think that you need to shoot in the season that you're after. In Kino, we're shooting like all year round, so we knew that we wanted to shoot during the Christmas time, the winter time. In the beginning, we thought that we would only shoot one season, but now it's like a whole year. You really need to decide on those limitations. If you only want to shoot in the summer, then shoot only in the summer, but think about how many days. Like, you need to adapt to whatever your idea is in terms of mood and the days. You need to adapt everything to that and make it work. But you can always light stuff as well, but documentaries are pretty hard to do that. Okay, so did I mark? Yes, I did. Kyle Anderson. Okay, so next one, Patrick Petchu. I think that's right. Swedish. Patrick. Okay, I struggle with, no, wrong one. Hey man, I'm from Sweden too, Borås, hej på dig. Hej på dig. And I think the hardest part of filmmaking is the screenplay stuff. That can be hard. There was some more screenplay stuff. Like how to wrap the story. I want to tell how to wrap the story into a good video. At the moment I'm new to filmmaking and I'm doing some rookie commercials to local stores here in Borås, but Goal is to start with documentaries. I'd really like to learn more about the writing aspect of creating film, manuscript, screenplay, and how to use different camera techniques and tell a story better. Thanks for the great videos, and you're an inspiration of mine. Thank you, dear sir. Lycka till med allt. Fortsätt med det du gör. Okay, so like if we take the screenplay part of this, because there was a lot of stuff you wondered. Screenplay for docs and commercials, like if we look at commercials, because that can be a pretty difficult thing, because the stuff that you promise a client is usually what they expect. So if you change anything, it can always be like a shitload of trouble. Because what happens is, like, they expect something, and anytime you change something that you feel is good, it's not sure that it's going to be for them. So I think that can be difficult. I had an issue like that today when we were switching an image that I didn't feel fit in to what we were doing, and it started to become this big thing because we wanted to switch one image that wasn't in the storyboard. And I think those things kind of hinder you when you do, like, at least like high-end type of stuff. But it's the same for all clients. Like, they have expectations, and you need to kind of make sure when you're working with clients to be as clear as you can from the beginning, and try to storyboard everything out so that you make the whole process of getting their feedback and everything much easier. Because the more you have it like the storyboard, the easier it's going to be to get it through in the end. So most people, they will kind of be turned off by doing storyboards when you do documentaries and everything. But when you start to do like commercials, if you don't do it, it's going to be a mess when you're in the editing room, because you don't know what they're expecting. They might have a totally different vision than you. So you need to get them on board by doing storyboarding and mood boards and all that. But in terms of how to like tie a story together, it can be really hard if you don't really know what the story is in the beginning. And like a story always, like, I feel like the story always finds an ending during the process of making it. I rarely have an ending in mind when I set out to do anything. Like, it all comes from the material. You start to look at the material, and it starts to kind of fall into place. You start to feel it out, and then you start to see a pattern, and then you start to see, how do I want to wrap this up? But usually, like, it has to have the bumps and the curves and everything that dramaturgy is there for, with the conflict being in the center. And like, if you look at a story and just an act, for instance, it will go like up and down in terms of the drama, because of the conflict going like up and down. So try to do something, you get bumped in a different way, and you try to do something, almost accomplish it another way. And then eventually you get to this big climax, or whatever, act climax, film climax, whatever it is. That has to be so big that the character goes through something and changes. And for docs, that's easy because you usually follow them a long period of time. So like, if you have done it in the right way, they will have changed. And like, the story will have evolved so much that it comes natural. As long as you film for long enough, things will change enough for it to be a strong story, I think, as long as the idea is good enough. But in terms of advertising, that's not so easy, because you have to write it out and you have to construct everything for it to work. So then it becomes like just practice, and try it out and feel it out, and look at what other people do and how they wrap stuff up. That's the best advice, I think, because it's very hard to figure it out just by doing yourself. But the more you do it yourself and fail, the more you learn, and the more you learn to look at the right examples for inspiration as well. Okay. Let's see. Next one is Samuel Mottin. I struggle with conveying time and resources to grow this passion of mine. Okay, so well, Martin. Yeah, so it can be really hard to set aside time, I feel, when you start out. But the way that I got my first film going and the way that I still work is that, like, as long as you always progress and as long as you make the little steps every day, it's all about like having a strict routine to make things happen all the time. Like as soon as you stop and you drop off and you do something else, like people love to start projects but they never finish everything or anything. So you need to be like really strict and have discipline. You need to always be making small progressions. And today, like, I work in a little bit different way because I've worked for a while and I have assistants and all that. So it's a little bit different because now I have to worry much more about like doing the right stuff. So I see it as like, okay, all the stuff that I need to focus on first is the stuff that makes like other people stop if I don't do them. So if I have stuff that is stopping their progression because we pay people to do stuff, so let's say I have feedback I need to give, or I have whatever document I need to go through and kind of just review it, and then somebody else can take their work and do more research or whatever it is. I need to get back to them as quickly as possible because then they can keep working and then the whole project progresses. That's one way of looking at it, when you have those things. But in terms of yourself, it's more about just going out and starting and doing small pieces every day. Like just set aside, if you have 15 minutes, then set aside 15 minutes, but do it every day. And then after a while, it adds up and you have things happening. And like the more you do 15 minutes, it's like working out. The more you will want to do, like half an hour, it adds up eventually. It's like a new routine that you have in your life and it just keeps going. That's the way that I did it, and it worked out eventually. But yeah, you just need to be really disciplined. Jamie Adams. Jamie. I struggle with trying to even get a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. Still waiting on mine. Okay, this is a really difficult thing to answer, so I won't. You'll just have to wait. Blackmagic has always had troubles, which sucks. Ty Parmenter. Ty. Okay, I struggle with planning my shots and storyboarding, making sure I have the right coverage I need to tell my story. Okay, yeah. So storyboarding, I used to hate, like I still don't draw or anything. I hate it. What I do is I usually I look at references. I look at just videos. And I take stills from those. Like first I watch videos, collect a couple of links to like a mood that I'm going for. And then I do a second pass where I do screenshots of the stuff that I like, put all that in a folder. I go into InDesign. You can go into any program, but I am used to working in InDesign. So I go into InDesign and then I just put the images in there in the order and play around with it. But before I do that, I usually write some type of outline of the ID, so I have something to go on, because otherwise it's going to be really dreadful to pick the shots. So whatever that is, it could be a synopsis, it could be just like frame by frame, depends on the project. But I think that for me, I I don't storyboard by drawing anything. I just pick out other people's shots that I think look good, and this is how it's done in the advertising world. You always take other people's stills to make your mood board or your pitch deck, or treatment is what it's called most of the time. And I think that that's the way that I'll continue working, because it's a super effective way for me to kind of piece a story together. I'm really visual, so I don't really write what they're gonna say, but sometimes for client work I need to write kind of what they're saying. But most of the time it's more about like what's happening, so I'm trying to tell a visual story of what the story is. And then that kind of becomes my my manuscript as well. But it is a storyboard, but it is what I go after in terms of the story, and I know if I at least get this, then it's going to be good, but it's usually something totally different and much better than that. But that's how I go about it, and I think that if you have that as a stepping stone to what you need to get, then when you get to location it's going to be easier, because you at least have that coming home, and then you don't have to worry about coverage, because coverage sucks. Like, thinking about coverage as something you need, to me that's the wrong way to go about it. Like, it shouldn't be about getting coverage, which traditionally is seen as getting all these angles so that we can pick in the edit where we're going to cut. I usually cut in the storyboard, so I know what shots and how it's going to be cut. And then I might switch it around in the edit, but I'm not worried that I don't have like 3 different angles to pick from. It's usually one, and maybe it just is one take as well. Okay, so let's go up again. Campbell Easton. For me, the struggle is productivity. I don't believe it's sufficient to only make 10 films in your career. I want to be creating the greatest speed possible, but this isn't an industry that allows that. Love the channel, by the way. Thank you, dear sir. Productivity is a funny thing. You know, if you... Like, I've spent so much time trying to build up like a get things done system. If you don't know about that, that's like a productivity system that you can Google. But it can be really hard to set up your process and the way that you're the most effective. I think that for me, like, getting kids was really good, because I had to kind of reevaluate how I spend my time. So now I get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I work until they wake up, and then I'm with them for a while, and then I go back to work a little bit, and then I am with them for a while, and like, that's how it works. But like, my best work is made in the early morning. So just knowing when you're the most effective is important, and working at that time. Like, I used to be a night type of guy, but now I'm not. I'm a morning type of guy. So I get up really early and I get the best work done. Then that's when I focus on editing, because that's when my mind is fresh and I'm the most effective and I make the right choices in the edit. In the afternoon I'm more tired and I'm less effective. And usually I think that you get about like 2 or 3 hours of really good editing work a day. The rest is mainly just like the boring assembly and organizing. Like, it's not good work spent the rest of the day. The most effective work you spend during a short period of time, and it's when you get into a flow state. And the mind can pretty much just focus really effectively during that time, for me at least. So it's the same if I write, it's the same for similar actions that are like more like mind heavy. But then I spend like the rest of the day, I do other stuff that don't demand that like intense focus. And I try to mix it up as well. Sometimes I have like a standing desk, So sometimes I'm editing there, other times I'm sitting either somewhere here or I'm sitting in the house, and that's like by this computer, so it's more casual. Like I mix it up so that I surprise myself of how I'm working. Sometimes I'm on the phone as well. It kind of depends, but you really need to like surprise yourself and try to make yourself think that stuff is fun. If you don't think stuff is fun, then you know your productivity goes out the window. And then once you have that figured out, it's easy to set up like get things done system for yourself. I just have like I used Ulysses, which is like an amazing text tool, and in that I just have a system that I've built up, which is every day I have like for every month I have every day as a different sheet or whatever you would call it in a different program, but I just line things up. I have to-do list for each month. I go out and I make a new, like I plan out the month in the beginning of the month, and then I just go about that, and you add things as you go along, you remove things, and then I just put all those in a bin. Stuff that is completed, like every day I put them in a completed folder. And that manual way of working is as close as you get to kind of having a notebook and writing stuff out, or like a moleskin type of thing. And I like that much more than all the apps that I've used, because I've used so many apps that are to-do lists and they just don't work. They're clumsy, they get you distracted. I don't like them at all. I've used very many and this is the best system I've had so far. It's built upon is it the bullet journal system or something like that? But I've kind of adapted it to be much more simple and effective. So you need to figure that out if you want to keep productive, and you need to get routines that make you always be producing stuff. Like I set aside time for editing in the morning because that's when I am the most effective, and that's when I don't get disturbed by either my kids or by work, because you start to get emails, you start to get phone calls, you get people that want stuff done. That ruins the whole flow. So that's what I'm just all about, just removing all the distractions. And I also check my emails only, like I don't barely email because we just use Slack, but still I check my emails maybe once, twice a day. And then yeah, I usually try to stay away from all social media and all that as well. That's the way to do it. Okay, we're on number 11. Let's see. Jake Anderson. Okay, so Jake Anderson, being too much of a perfectionist and having ideas not turn out as good as they are in my head. You know, this is a funny thing because being a perfectionist is a problem, because if you are and you're disappointed with the result, you need to practice more, so you need to make more. That's a big issue. Like if you're a perfectionist, you need to produce more to get better, but you're not because you're worried about what people will think, or you're worried about it being not as good as you want it to be. Just forget about that. Just produce, make stuff until you are happy with things. Like, you don't have to put things out if you get like disappointed with the result, but the only way to get to the level where you're trying to be is by producing and becoming better by experience. It's a bit of a bad situation to be in. Hunter Christie. My biggest struggle is lighting on a budget. Yeah, that can be a problem, but I don't really feel like it should be a problem. First of all, you can shoot everything without light. Like natural light, if you can learn how to handle natural light and you can adapt the project to natural light if that's the limitation you have, to only shoot in that type of way, and then get a camera as well that fits into that. Like, you have to adapt as well. I could easily shoot something without lighting anything. It's nice to be able to light things, but most of the time I don't have the time, or it's not practical for the docs that we're making. For advertising I always do it, but it just is something that I would like to do. I would like to have a gaffer on all my projects, but can't afford it on the documentaries. They would look much better, but there's always like some bad part of the productions that you have to like compromise with. Otherwise, look at the lighting playlist that I have, because that will probably help you a little bit ahead. Stas Shostak, that I must have butchered. Stas Shostak. I'm trying to slowly move away from making games to making short videos in my free time. But I struggle with finding people willing to take part in that, because all my contacts and reputation are now in game development field, and I usually work remotely with people around the globe. Bring 5 or more people I trust together at one place turned out as hardest part of the filmmaking process for me so far. I guess this depends on what you want to do. Like 5 people, that's a lot of people if you do docs, so I'm guessing you're not doing that. You're doing short docs, probably doing more narrative type of stuff. I think that that's still something that you need to learn if you want to make, especially narrative stuff, but for everything you need to collaborate. So I think that if you have trouble with something, you need to stare it in the eye and do that. So if that was troublesome, it was that for the first time, but the next time it's a little bit easier, and the next time it's a little bit easier. That's the way that things goes. And I just feel like if you don't try to overcome those obstacles in life, you don't progress. So whatever it is that you struggle with, you should do that. And I mean, it seems like you have vision. It seems like you have people that wants to do it with you, but that it's difficult to do. Then it feels like it's just more about doing more times than you have in order for you to get better at it and progress. I think that if you're doing games, you probably know about narrative storytelling and all that, so you probably have enough of that to be able to make the stuff. But for everyone, it's just a matter of doing it enough times, and then you will be good at it. So the more stuff that you can do on somebody else's payroll where you can learn to get better, then the better, instead of you having to pay for it and get all your friends together. Kind of smoky now, right? Okay, next one. Nick Mongar. I struggle with being able to sell myself and my work to clients that aren't familiar with paying for creative services. Once a client has some experience with creative services, they understand the amount of time, effort, and skill that goes into each project, and then they are more understanding of paying what you're actually worth. But being the first person you need to explain to them, it's always challenging. Yeah, this is really like a big issue. First of all, I think that you also should try to get like better and better clients slowly. It's really difficult when you start out to get good clients. It just is. Like, good clients do not grow on trees. They are so freaking rare. Like, I have pretty much one project that is like a really good project. All the others are decent. And I still have like compared to what I had 5 years ago, all of those that I have today are dream projects in terms of what I used to do. But usually I think that I have about one good project a year that is something that I really want to do. Most of the time it's something that I do, but clients, like people are doubting the idea. It's always something. Like maybe from the beginning there was like a good idea and it looked like this would be a good project, but along the way things don't turn out like you hope for. And the only thing that I think that you can really do stuff in like a good way with clients is to be super clear and specific about things and to have a workflow to it. So the way that it usually goes in like the advertising industry when you're working with like big agencies. So they have, for instance, meetings and all that to go through everything with the client, and they explain things. And if it's a good agency that you're working with, they will have the say over the brand or client, as they are called in that world. They will be the one that tells the client or brand what to do, not the other way around. If you're on a different level and you have the brand that is deciding factor in a situation, then it's not a big enough or respectable enough agency that you're working with. And that level where like the client is the one that is deciding on things is pretty much the worst place to be in most situations. There's a little bit of thing happening now where more and more people are starting to do more in-house, and they're starting their own in-house type of departments that do video because it's so expensive. And sometimes they might be really good, but rarely not so much. And usually they don't want to spend any money doing it. So for the most part, I think that people should try to get the bigger type of productions with the bigger type of agencies, because it's so much more money. Like most people will work in like the 10K type of realm, and when you are in that world, you will never be able to make enough money that you will be able to like sit around and develop projects or to even have vacation in a good way, because you're always going to chase that money to be able to survive. The way that you have to go about it, if you really want to have like bigger type of productions, is to create a name for yourself and a brand and a niche and all that. And once you have that, then the agency will also make it easier for you because they will negotiate for you. And when you do all that work yourself, you need to apply the same way that they are working, like good, like established agencies, how they work. That's something that you need to do. So you need to go about having, for instance, first of all, online and offline. If you don't know what that is, then that's crucial to have. An online and offline is, first of all, it's not relevant today if you look at it as something where like offline is the editing. We usually like have all the okays on the edit and we lock the edit. That's not really something that you need to do today, but you used to have to do that because of the way that film worked. But the reason why you still have that is because you have that as the official okay. Now we've locked the edit, now we move forward. So you have a date for it, and this is a contract situation. So when you don't have those rules that after today we don't change anything in the edit. If we do, it costs more, it's this and this and this. Those things are really important to have in your workflow, and it's really important to explain that about your workflow for the client to understand that, okay, after this I can't change anything, okay. Then the online is when you do the grading and you do sound mixing and you do all that. And when you have those like really clear things, then that's an easier way to get something through in terms of everything. On top of that, you have the pre-production meeting, which is when you start a project up. And usually that's like a really important thing to have, because this is where you present your storyboard. They give an okay on the storyboard and everything is okay. Then it's like, this is what we use for the contract as well. Those 3 stepping stones is what key in any like advertising world type of scenario, if you want to be clear with your clients. If you can take those and you can kind of look at what a treatment is, because that's like a pre-production meeting. Pre-production meeting is usually what you have to present your treatment, to get it through to the client and all those things. When you do that, it's like a proper pitch. This smoke, let's have some more, but also some water. Whoa, on the mic. Okay, anyway, so that's at least the 3 key things that you really need to think about if you want to get clear with the clients. And then the storyboard is the thing that you need to really be clear about. But be clear about the process. Like, what is it like? How many feedbacks or feedback turnarounds are you offering? Usually we limit everything. We write exactly what it's supposed to be, and you also need to like count the time, be specific, be like ruthless with these things, and be clear from the start, because otherwise you won't be able to ask for more money. Yeah, long answer. Okay, Joachim Chanel. Joachim. How to shoot stuff while having a full-time job and 2 young kids. It's all a pipe dream right now. Working on a script instead, actually. Yeah, it's really demanding, because I have 2 kids now, and I'm actually a stay-at-home dad. So I really have like limited time. I usually work like in the morning, and then I work at the night. So you have a limited amount of sleep that you get. It works for me. I will probably continue to do this, even though I'm back with the kids at like preschool soon. But I think that this can be like a really difficult thing. When you have kids, you get different priorities. It's very easy to not prioritize other stuff. Like, we're making so much stuff at the same time. That's why we have other people working on it most of the time, because I don't have time to do all of it. So usually I might do more than I am at the moment, but yeah, it's just a situation that you're gonna be in when you have kids. And I think that you just need to plan stuff out, and the same way as I was talking about earlier, like set aside little time and start there. Like, always be disciplined, and always be making it into routines, and then that will make it easier to stick to it. Thomas Urro, what a name, Thomas Urro. I don't know. Probably butchered it again. I struggle with subject matter. As a very occasional script doctor, I feel comfortable punching up someone else's story dialogue. Just don't ask me to provide the starting point. Maybe getting a camera like this and going out shooting stuff would get me beyond a blank page and into the real world. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I think that like subject matter, it has to come from what you're interested in. Like, whatever you're interested in, build upon that. So if you're interested in something, start going down the research rabbit hole of watching like videos, or just do stuff that you're interested in, and eventually you'll find like a path that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but usually that's where I start. Like, you have to care for it, otherwise it doesn't make sense to do it. And Yasin Ahmed, I struggle with getting my image of what I want to match the final product. I often end up with videos that are lower quality and not what I want, even if I plan out before the shoot. Okay, so Yasin, I think this is just a matter of experience, but I think that it might be easier also if you look at references and go about it in like the storyboard way that I've talked about a lot. Like just map stuff out, look at other people's works, whatever they do, and make storyboards from what they do and try to recreate it. I think that's an easier way than trying to come up with everything yourself. That's at least what I think, but yeah, it can be hard to do stuff. Like it can be really hard to come up with things from scratch. Ashley Leach. I struggle with autism and how it affects how I make my films when it comes to direction and working with others. Okay, this is kind of dependent on how bad the autism is, but I guess working with others, of course, that's natively difficult when you have autism. But in terms of making the films, like I would look at it as like a strength. If you have autism, I would look at that as a strength in this case, because that's what makes you unique. So it's what will give you unique insights into certain things. You should make stuff about stuff that you care about, and you should make those things personal, I feel, because that will bring about a very unique direction in terms of the story that nobody else will probably have made, because there are so few with autism, I think, in the film industry. And then when it comes to working with others, I think that if you're open with like you having autism, whatever it is, I don't know how much, how little, how much of an issue is it. Like depending on what it is, like just be straight with people, and people be understanding. I think that's most of the time. I think that's the case. Like this is not the same, but I used to, like we did a film about a or it was a series for TV. Was it cerebral palsy? Yeah, I think it was. And she had it, and she had an assistant, and we struggled with like, how do we tell her story in the best way and the most personal way, because it was a personal story about her. And the way that we came up with it was that we used an actor that read her words, that she was writing a lot, and we like based the script upon what she was writing in her blog at the time. So then an actor was actually reading it, because she couldn't talk so that people would understand, but she was like fully there with everything else. So it was just an interesting way of working with somebody that was like a documentary, but then we added that layer with somebody else reading a voiceover, and that tied the whole story together. I think that you need to think about those methods as well, depending on how much of an issue it is with your autism, whatever that is. Like look at how do you collaborate with who, which person is the right one to make those hindrances that you see not be that. Like who would complement whatever you have. Because I think that it comes down to like the ideas in the end, and if you have good ideas, then that should make you succeed. Okay, this is gonna be the most difficult name of today. Zbigniew Bober. I don't know. Maybe. I can write it because I have it in front of me. It would be easier if I knew the countries at least. But when I just see a name, it could be anywhere. I definitely struggle with being able to choose. So many ideas and possibilities nowadays, which make me do nothing in the end instead of just starting. Well, not always, but sometimes. Yeah, this is a big dilemma, right? Which one do you do? So we talk a lot about this internally in our company. And if there's one thing that we've realized, it's really that we have to have pretty much like 5 projects going at the same time. They'll like ideally all of them are in different stages, and I think that's like super important to have them in different stages. So you have one that's in production, one in post-production, and a couple in development, or maybe two in production and then one in post-production and a couple in development. That's how I would think about it. At least when you get to a level where like it's a place where you get funding and that sort of thing. You need to spread your chances. Maybe one project dies, maybe one project has trouble getting post-production funding. Like spread it out so that you have different options in terms of everything. And that's the same with IDs. When you're starting to choose something, like just start progressing all of them a little bit. Then one of them will be your main project. One of them you'll see, oh, this is really what I want to do. So I have these two projects at the time. 3 actually, but 2 projects. It's the Kino project, which has been like the main project for a long time. But before that, like 4 or 5 years ago, I guess 4 years ago, maybe, no 5 maybe, whatever. We were doing a different project that we were trying to fund then, and we were pitching it and all that. We didn't manage to do that. That project has just been laying around. There's been a lot of development in the project that I can't really talk about, but yeah, so now people are in jail that we've been following, and like things have happened, and now we're picking that project up again. We were able to pitch it this last fall, and now that project is ongoing. It's a lot of like, okay, pacing that up again and all that. That was a dead project for a while, and then it was resurrected. And the project is also, like, I brought different projects together. So another project that was dead like 10 years ago, that's also something that we brought into this project. So certain projects will be picked up and they will be blended together as well. But it's important to develop them to a stage where you can pitch them ideally. So then you can leave them. As soon as you get a project to that stage, you have them advanced enough that you can start pitching, and yeah, things can start to happen in terms of funding and all that. I think that's really important. That's how we think about it today. Like we try to develop them enough so that we can pitch, and then we don't worry so much if we get like all the projects going, but that would be fun. But usually just a couple of them that gets going. But you really need to see if the projects work, and for that you need to do work. Joseph Momo. Joseph. Struggle is lighting. We are on 21. Soon we're gonna spin. Okay, so Joseph struggles with lighting, soaking in as much info as practice as I possibly can. Okay, so lighting is pretty difficult to learn. I used to do documentary photography, stills photography. I think that's how I learned light. But then I also work with a lot of gaffers, and that's what I would recommend. Like, try to work with gaffers. If you're a DOP, hire gaffers or get assistants, like whatever it is on free projects, whatever. But gaffers are so freaking good at what they do, and they know so much about light. I've never been a gaffer, but I've always worked with gaffers. I've learned so much from working with them, and I just like soak it in, like watch what they do and analyze what they do. They probably do the same with me in terms of like DOPing, but I watch them as much as they watch me because I want to learn light as much as I can. So that's a good way to learn, working with professionals that are better than you are, and then just trying to learn from them. See it as an investment when you pay for someone. Don't just hire them and just let them do the work. Like, ask them questions as well. I do the same for sound mixers and all that as well, so I learn something from actually paying them. But other than that, like, yeah, lighting tutorials are great. I think Aperture has like bunch of lighting tutorials that you should check out. Yeah, Julian Mosbach. Could be any of those. Actually, my biggest struggle is knowing what your picture is supposed to look like when your film is ready, because taking some pressure off the post process always seems to give me a lot better. Taking some pressure off the post process always seems to give me a lot better results. Going back to the same thing as I said before, like look at your favorite films, like do screen dumps of those, and then grade to make stuff look the same way. Because then you know, like, this is a good reference that works in the cinema and it works on TV and all that. That's a good reference in terms of like how saturated should the colors be, how should the contrast be, how should the black point be, how should the white point be. Choose films that you really like and go from those. You need references to get good, because you can't, like, you will stare yourself blind if you just watch it yourself. Okay, so here we go. Radek. I only have a first name. Radek. The struggle is the idea that you are not good enough. It feels weird to me that people like my work. I always have feeling that I could do stuff better. Yeah, that's always going to be the case, I think. I just think that you kind of need to get over yourself in terms of like, I'm always like really critical of what I do, but you really need to ship stuff as well. Like, to get better, you need to be able to like drop stuff and get stuff out there. If you don't get stuff out there, you're not going to do the next stuff that you will be better at. So for instance, right now, what I'm known for is The Pearl of Africa. It's a film that was shot, I guess, in 2014. Do you think I'm on the same level in 2019? That's the issue that you have. Like, you're known for one thing and then like you progress. So now that I'm pitching off of what they know from that. Like, that's the film that they've seen. And you're always like known for something, whatever that is. And I think that that's the struggle, really, to kind of show that you have progressed. That's something that I know, like the Swedish Film Institute, for instance, look at when they look at like what projects to support, for instance. They look at like, how did this person progress from the last project? Did they get any better? Does it look like this project has progressed in terms of artistic integrity and all that? Yeah, so you need to progress as much as you can from project to project. I think that's super important. Let me just see. Radek. If there was something else that I missed. That you're not good enough. Yeah, and then that just self-doubt. I think that, like, if you were at least with the experience, you stop thinking about it, I think. But it's always something you worry about when you're not feeling like you get to the level that you want to be. You will always be worried that, like, okay, is this good enough? As long as you're not reaching that potential and you're like not sure, like, what level are you on? Now I feel confident, but just a couple of years ago I didn't feel confident enough to even be making advertising, because I didn't feel like I would be like able to get them to the level that I wanted them to be. Like, that's a part me as a creative, part me as a communicator, partly like where I am level wise. So if you do your passion projects, I think that that's like the best way for you to progress and to get like the calling card that you need to get work that are consistently in the way that you want to make them. But yeah, I don't show stuff that I'm not satisfied with either. So you don't have to show everything either. I don't know if this answers the question. It was kind of hard. Okay, last one, and then we're gonna spin the wheel. where did you go? I saw the last one. Okay. Okay, this actually may be harder name. Nehemia. Okay, let's say Nemia Arteaga. Might have been the worst for me to say. Nemia Arteaga. Okay, I struggle with color grading and deciding if the content is good enough. Yeah, in terms of color grading, I think I said a lot on that. If it's good enough, this can be hard to kind of decide, I think, because you're always biased. Like when I release something, I always feel like it's good, but you never really know, right? It's always hard to know. Like the simplest, most like the videos I never feel like this will go really well on the channel, they seem to be like the ones that often do well. It's really hard to predict what people are liking and watching, and it's hard to predict online what audience do you have, what do they like. It's the same in a cinema. If you go to one festival, they like a certain type. If you go to another festival, they like another type. It depends on like what's the demographics of the program, where you get your film screen. There's so many things to take into consideration in terms of what people think is good enough. I think you can only make, like if you're smart, you only make stuff that you think is good, and you ship when you think is good enough. I think that's the biggest obstacle really to like decide on, okay, this is the, it's more important sometimes to just get it out of your system and go to the next thing than to be like all messed up by, okay, what are they gonna think? What are they gonna say about it? Just get it out there, make another film, make it better. But also do test screenings. Like that's how we do it always with the film. We do a lot of test screenings, we do feedback rounds, we do like story consultancy, all that on like our big projects. Now I'm so used to working with clients today and agencies and creatives and getting feedback, and I also used to do that as an editor. So for me, like getting feedback and all that, I'm so used to it, so it doesn't affect me, like emotionally, it doesn't affect how I think about the project or anything like that. So it's just a good thing to get like different opinions on what I'm creating. And usually it doesn't mean like they know what the solution is or what's the direction that is needed, but they usually point you in a direction where you can find the answer to where you want to go. Okay. Time has come, my friends. We have 24 names. Should I read all of them? Let me know in the chat, or should I just go about this straight away? Let me try to get all these to stick. Okay, I'll just read this. So number 1 is Darren, number 2 is Ryan Sharrat, number 3 is Nathaniel Byrons, number 4 is Amber Doku. I can't read my own letters. Number 5 is Andrea Patty, number 6 is Kyle Anderson, number 7 is Patrick Petchu, number 8 is Samuel Mottin, number 9 is Jamie Adams, number 10 is this right? Ty Parmentix? Let me check. Ty Parmenter. Number 11, Campbell Easton. Number 12, Jake Anderson. Number 13, Hunter Christie. Number 14, Stas Shastak. Number 15, Nick Monger. Number 16, Joachim Chernell. Number 17, Thomas Urro. Number 18, Yasin Ahmed. Number 19, Ashley Leach. Number 20, Sibiginiev Bobber. Number 21, Joseph Mumu. Number 22, Julian Mosbach. Number 23, Radek. Number 24, Nehemia Artiaga. And here we go. So first one that we're gonna draw will have to be the LUTs. LUT or preset. Who will win? I wonder how we do this. If I draw the same thing. Okay, so if we get the same name, I'll do it all over. Like, so I'll say that before we draw anyone. So if one name comes up twice, you will only win one thing. So I'll just do this all over again and we'll see who wins. So it's actually kind of a bad thing to win these 3 first prizes if you want to win this one, because this one is last. Here we go. Number 18, Yasin Ahmed. Congratulations to the LUTs and preset. Okay, I need to mark this. Can't forget it. Okay, let's see. LUTs. Okay, check. Next one. Here we go. One more time. And now, okay, let's say grading course. Ashley Leach. Ashley. Grading. Check. Okay. Next one. What will it be? Documentary course, of course. Let's go. Okay, Yasin, so I'll spin again. Andrea Patti. What was that? Yeah, Andrea Patti. Okay, Andrea Patti. What's that? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Doc course. Okay, so the moment you've all been waiting for. Who wins the camera? Who's gonna win this one? Okay. Moment of truth. Julian Mosbach, congratulations! Okay, so we'll email you, I guess. I think we have your email here, right? Julian camera. There we go. Where are you at? You haven't written where you're at either, so I don't really know. But anyway, this was fun, right? Let me see if I can answer some questions before we go. Okay, and if you have anything of the grading course or the doc course or the LUTs, let us know and we'll give you something else. But other than that, yeah, this was fun, right? Did you ask anything? There's so much in the chat I can't really see. I guess we do more questions the next time. Anyways, guys, this was fun. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this. I don't know how we'll do this again, but I know that some sponsors is sending stuff, so maybe we can do some giveaways in the future as well. Anyway, thanks guys for watching again, and good night. Unfortunately, I need to go all the way over there to turn it off.